Welcome to the Heart Speakers Toastmasters podcast. My name is Pierre and I'm your host. Please come join us every first and third Tuesday of the month. And for all details, please go to heartspeakers.org.uk. Today, I'm here with a familiar face. It is again Abbey. Abbey was our speech champion 2 years ago, and she came back and gave us a few tips and tricks, and now she's back for another time. So hello, Abbey.
Hello, Pierre. I actually was I a speech champion this year, running too, I think, in the international contest again.
That was the international contest.
Yes. I think there was two, right? Time's gone so flown. Yeah, it's flown a lot. That was my second online contest of the international one.
Awesome. So yes, we have
and I went further in that one, so I'm making progress.
Well, that's awesome. And again, if you haven't listened to our podcast, please look for Abbey in the podcast. She'll give you some really good tips on competition and whatnot. But today we're going to talk about something a little different. So we'll just do a quick recap of Abbey. So Abbey, can you give us the quick recap of what you do and where you're from and stuff like that? So where are you from?
Sorry, my internet just went. Say that again, Pierre.
Yeah, so where are you from and what are you currently doing right now?
So did you say where I'm from? Like specifically? Oh well, I'm from Leicester. That's where I grew up.
There you go.
So I'm a Leicestershire girl, but I probably located in Solihull just over 5 years ago by default. Through circumstances, and then I found Heart of England Speakers probably a year in from being in Solihull, and what inspired me to do that was really wanting to connect with people in the community because I knew no one and I was working online on my own remotely, so I wanted to venture out and connect with people, and here I am really. And what was the second question?
Yeah, so let me rephrase that. You were online before it was cool, right? You were doing English classes remotely. So that's your background. You're
100%. Yeah. So my background's in, my original background was in health and fitness. About 10, 12 years ago, I did a degree in sport therapy. I used to work in the gyms, fitness instructor, personal trainer, bodybuilding contests, and all that sort of stuff. And then I started traveling, and I actually began a career in English foreign language teaching, which helped me with my traveling. And I went into, I worked in the schools in China, in Thailand. And then I transitioned from the government schools in, bricks and mortar building into the online realm of EFL teaching. And so I became an online English foreign language teacher. And I still do that, but more part-time now. And I was doing that I started that maybe 5-6 years ago. And so that was really my work career, really. I moved over back into England and I just ended up doing that 5 days a week at home. And then COVID hit, which was really interesting. And then everyone started doing it. But that was literally my way of living. So funny enough, during COVID, nothing much changed for me. I just carried on through it. And here I am really. And I actually decided to go back into the schools, but in the UK now. So I'm actually physically working with students again in person.
Oh, okay. So you're still teaching English or different?
No, well, I'm an English foreign language teacher. So I'm not an English I don't teach English literature or anything like that. So I'm working more of a teaching assistant in the schools. But I'm looking to develop my well-being and things like that. I'm more interested in my yoga and mindfulness, mental health, and all that sort of jazz. So that's what I'm trying to get into. Working with students on that and that sort of platform, yeah.
That's very cool. So, in your background, well, let's go back to the beginning. You joined, and straight away you volunteered for a role, right, at Toastmaster. Which one was that?
Yeah, well, the email went round, who would like to be on the committee, and I joined up in March, and obviously the committee year starts in around June, July. And I just asked, what is there a role that, doesn't require too much because I don't really know what I'm doing. And the secretary, actually, first I went for the Sergeant at Arms. And then lo and behold, there was two people that wanted to go for that. It was me and I think Caroline. And they were like, Abby, do you just want to be secretary? And I was like, okay, I'll be a secretary. Didn't know what I was doing. But that was a great role to start with because it's sort of a fly on the wall and you sit there, you listen, you do what you need to do. And at that time, Rachel was the president and I think Rich was VPBR. I know, Pierre, were you on there or were you on the following committee?
The
following, yeah. And then after that year, I became a VPM. And that I learned a lot with the membership, recruiting and things like that, and on all the systems. And you work closely with the VPPE, the educational part of it. And then gradually Rich at the time was preparing me really to be the next president. And I went for it really. So it took me 3 years. So from my third year on the committee, I became president from secretary and not really knowing what I'm doing. So it was very quick, speedy process really.
So, I mean, in your background, obviously more of it on the teaching side, you don't really have like in my field, for example, like a corporate ladder where people just do one task and then they lead the task and then they manage the task. So what pushed you to go through all these roles?
For me, I'm a personal development junkie. So I've always had this internal hunger of just wanting to grow and to develop myself. Been doing it for absolutely years now. And I recognize that in the leadership part of it, I hadn't got much experience within that, apart from leading a classroom full of, children, students. I had no experience about leading actual adults in a sort of professional organization. Quite very strange for me to do that. I felt really out of place actually being in that sort of context and that environment. And so it was scary for me. And they say, do the things that scare you. And also I recognize if I did want to grow, in my well-being, my yoga, develop a business, which I am doing right now, I need those leadership skills. I feel like I'm very good at self-leadership, which is just keeping yourself on track and motivated. I'm very good at that. But the other part of it is leading a team. And I knew it was just, the path was unfolding for it. I wasn't really planning to do it. It just happened and I went with the flow. That's one of my mottos in life is just to go with the flow and it will all unfold in front of you. And it did really. It was all very organic and it just happened. And I was very lucky to have a lot of supportive people around me and particularly the president at the time, Rich. He was really mentoring me to be in that role. So I did feel completely supported as I transitioned into that role too.
Okay, so was that July 1st? I think it was the one that started. July 1st rolls around and boom, you're the president. So what goes through your mind?
OMG, can I do this? And there's two parts of you really. I feel there's the heart and the mind. So this is how I describe it. So my heart is like, yeah, you can do it, Abbey, you've got all this wisdom, work from the heart. And then my mind's like, oh, but what if I fail? What will people think of me? What if I don't know how to do something? Will I look silly? And this and that. So it was really a battle between the heart and the mind. Luckily, my heart won. But what I found as well, it's the sense of pressure and that responsibility on your shoulders. And it really is this idea of ego of what will people think of me. And I think that was a big part of it. It's like, what if I don't recruit that many people? What if people don't turn up to the meetings? We had quite a few members that left that, the first renewal in September. And it's just all this thing. And it's a sense of like, how will people perceive me? And I think we all have that, I think. And when you go up the ranks into a leadership role, you've got more and more pressure and you get more feedback from people. And you've got to have this art of not taking things personally, which was another thing I needed. What I developed within me is not taking things personally. But that was it. It was really that scary. Initially, that was that scary, like, oh, am I going to pull this off? Am I going to get 10 DCP points? Because I've, Rich and Rachel and Steve, they all done an amazing job as president. And I had to, carry on that momentum, really. I felt that pressure. So yeah, that's where I was at. But luckily, I was grounded as well in my heart. And I knew that I could do this. I just had to break it down step by step.
So September rolls around, people start dropping off. What, did you have a vision at this point, or did you have a plan?
Well, my presidency was a tricky one because it was the first hybrid presidency. So my job was transitioning the club into hybrid, and Rich, the former president, had got this going, and we got the tech equipment, but I was basically the president to deploy it and to make it work. So my vision, because we were transitioning through a tough time, the club went through a tough time. Online was kind of wearing itself out, and we needed to go into person. So we needed to bring some more club morale into the community of Toastmasters, I felt. So my vision really was to have a really successful hybrid meeting and to have more people in person by the end of my presidency. So we can hand over to the next president in a good sort of momentum and strength, as it were. So that was really my mission, to bring people back to uplift the community of Heart of England, because it was a bit of a tough time through COVID. And I felt like one of my duties as a president during that year.
So for those of us who don't know, the DCP points, so each club gets a point for, let's just say, membership or renewals. And if you get 10, then you get, high honors, which the club has gotten for the last, 8 years, for a long time.
Well, Steve was the one that got up to the 10, I think. I think previously we were up and down. And then Steve, Rachel, and Rich had all done 10 DCP. So I knew they were doing it. We'd done it 3 years in a row, and I was the 4th year. So it was a test for me to see if I could still continue that.
So you had the extra pressure. How did it look like, let's say, around this time, like November period, and going into the holidays? How was the mood? How did you feel? How did it go?
To be honest, we dipped. We lost a lot of long-standing members, a lot of core members that had been with the club for some time. And luckily, I'm very much in touch with nature and the natural course of nature, particularly during that time of year. It's autumn, and things, shed for new life to grow in the new year. And it kind of happened like that with us. And I did feel like, oh gosh, we had about just over 30 odd members, I think, and we dropped to just above 20, I think. Mm-hmm. It was hard, and I don't think I've ever experienced that through my whole committee. So I think as a president, I took a really big hit, and I know it wasn't a reflection on me. It was just circumstance. Post-COVID, people just moving into different ways of doing things, different priorities came forth, and so that's just what happened in my presidency. So I did feel under pressure, and I knew that I had to drive a new sort of campaign, as it were, to get new life into the members again, into our club, and to reach out to new sort of leads. So it was a bit of a rocky start, to be honest.
So what was that campaign actually?
I tried. We tried obviously the open day. Didn't really, to be honest, didn't really get the numbers that we wanted to. But so slowly and surely during the new year, I went through social media outlets. We tried to reach out for newspapers and things like that. Just seeing where people, where the audience is, you know, where types of communities would want to come to Toastmasters, such as LinkedIn and things like that. So we were just creating up ideas to reach out. But to be honest, it's more usually organic, word of mouth. I find that people get drawn into the club, and we managed to recover. And by the next renewal in March, I think we were in a better place. Just under 30 members, and we kept most of them. So I was really happy with that. That was our target for our year, to maintain members with that member retention, and we only lost 2 or 3, I think. So I'm really happy with that. Yeah. And I think a key thing with that I learned is it is about creating those relationships within the club, reaching out to people, creating that rapport with people. Yeah.
Very nice. I know you're very spiritual and about your yoga and being in flow. Did you feel you were in the flow of things? If that makes sense. Like,
yeah.
Did you feel like you were swimming across, like, you know, going the other way, or did you, Did you feel
upstream or down?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Like if you're like swimming upstream, or are you swimming downstream with the flow?
Yeah. How did you feel?
Luckily, like I did feel like everything did unfold quite naturally. I led from the heart. I got inspiration from my own intuition, basically. It was a bit of a balancing act between the mind and the intuition. So creating up with these ideas and inspiration from the heart, but leading from the mind as well with strategy, and putting things into place. What I found, it was funny because when I started as president, I'd also decided to start a yoga class as well with my own little business. So I had these 2 projects on at the same time. I decided to put loads of pressure on myself, obviously. But and for my yoga class, that was another mission of trying to draw people in, getting a community in, and for them to keep attending every single week, which was really challenging for me and my ego. But what I learned from both of those experiences by the end of both of those years, it's that I realized that people come back for who you are and the connection that you build. And it's not necessarily from a professional, it's more for real personal connection, and just reaching out and just expressing that you care, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what I found, like, people are drawn to that. They connect with you, and they're more likely to like, yeah, well, I'll come back, because they had that feeling of, you know, security, safety, or whatever that is. And that's what I experienced in my yoga class. People keep coming for the connection I developed within the community. It's not necessarily I'm a very good yoga teacher, but it's actually more than that. So that's what I found within the leadership of presidency. It's about the relationships you create. And I think that's definitely a spiritual thing, and going with the flow, and being led from the heart. And I felt like it worked. So yeah, that's what I found. That's one of my biggest things that I learned from leadership. Try not to get too much in the mind, because you can become quite disconnected, and people won't feel that from you. They'll just become they might put like that barrier up between both of you. I don't know if, like, when you have a manager that's not quite, you know, they're quite distant. I still, like, for me, I think it's really important to have that connection.
No, I agree. You're mentioning like safety and all that. How did you feel about the COVID situation? Obviously, there were guidelines in the UK, but a lot of them had to be your call as well. So how did you manage all that?
The COVID, I was quite lucky. We were just coming out of that sticky phase. We did what we had to do with the for sanitizer. But I think, from what I remember, Rich had the trickier part of that. The past president, the president before me, with all the laws and regulations. I was very fortunate enough when we were coming into my presidency. I think a lot of that got lifted. They didn't have to worry about that as much. But yeah, that's another thing. It was keeping people safe, right? But we did what we could. We got the sanitizer, we got the distancing when we needed to. We had all the face masks on call. So yeah, I think I got lucky with that. I think I just came out of that sort of sticky bit.
So all right, so January rolls around, coming into spring. How are things? How did you feel? How were you up on DCP or
yeah, we were blossoming. We were blossoming. I felt like we were growing. We were growing as a club. I was getting into the rhythm of it, and we would just do the second contest, first contest, organizing that as a president. Again, it's quite daunting. It's like, wow, I had to organize, particularly because it was online, and we also got other clubs involved. So it was a lot of logistics. And then I had to do it again, and I ended up competing in it as well. So organizing and competing at the same time is quite chaotic. But yeah, that went really, really well. I was really happy with that. And
was that online or I offer it free?
Yeah, no, it was all online still. Yeah. But we had JLR in it and maybe another club in it. So we were organizing like 3 club contests in one. There was a lot of logistics. Fortunately, that's one of my strengths. I'm quite good at logistics.
Did you feel logistics online were more difficult than in person, or just different?
Yeah, you have to be very proactive because you don't have that luxury of, oh, could you just sign this, in person, or could you just do this for me? You have to be very, very proactive, doing things a week ahead. Because it can spectacularly go really wrong online, and we've all experienced that, in some way, shape, or form. So what I'm quite proud of is that one of the things I realised about myself is that I am very organised, and I'm very good at doing stuff like that. And also I'm quite good at technical stuff as well. I don't know why, but I am. So the tech sort of stuff I'm quite competent at doing as well. So that was a lucky thing that I was able to do that as a president as well, because it's an extra thing that for some people can be quite challenging. So that went well. We were hitting a lot of our DCP points. People were progressing. So yeah, about at that point, it was a bit on a home run after the contest. I was really on a home run till the end of the presidency. And then that was when the socials came into place, and we started doing more socials, which I think is a key thing for club morale. I felt like that really uplifted the club and created a different dimension to the dynamic of our community.
All right, so obviously you got DCP points early, right? I think you got the points.
Yeah, we hit the target probably a month or so prior to the deadline. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. So you're looking at June, and that's the end of your term. So how did you feel? Relief or sadness? A mix?
I'm gonna be honest. I was relieved. I did it. I managed to do it. Toast as a leader and Toastmasters, particularly a president, it takes a lot of time in your life. And fortunately, I had that time during that year. And I was just transitioning into a new job at that point. So everything kind of worked out well. I finished my presidency and I was moving into a new job. No, I was happy to hand over the reins, as it were. But I still have that buzz in me. When I go to the meetings now, I still take on the lead with doing the background stuff if needs be, and support the current president, Caroline, where she needs support, and the rest of the committee. I think you always had that buzz. Like with you're still doing your podcasts, not on the committee, but you're still continuing. So it's really nice. It kind of plants the seed, and it's always there within you. It just kind of navigates and grows in different ways, I think, over the years ahead. But yeah, it was good. Yeah.
No, I think I always talk about a safe environment. So I think leadership roles in Toastmasters are about if you want to experiment with something, it's really a safe environment for you to do so. If you want to do marketing, you can do it a year. You don't like it. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, just don't do it. And there's no, it's, again, you just experiment, nobody judges, and it's fine. All right. So from all this, what are your main takeaways from your year leadership, especially because I'm thinking about people who are on the outside looking in and thinking, maybe I could do it, maybe I should do it. So what are your main takeaways from your year as president?
If I was going to give my advice to someone, just go do it without thinking about too much of it. Just go in there and then you will get supported on the way. I describe it as a playground. You just play and see what happens. Particularly if you're in a situation where you feel like you've never done anything like this in a professional way. You might have one of those jobs that is a creative job, like an artist, or, and you're not used to this sort of professional leadership sort of style. And it might be quite daunting. You might not even think that's your archetype. And for me, it wasn't. I didn't feel like I was meant to be a president. I felt like an outcast in a way. I didn't feel like I was that sort of type of person, but you don't need to be any type of person. You just go do it and you put your own stamp on it. And that's what I did. I brought my own spirituality. I brought my own yoga. I brought Abbey basically into that role, and people loved it. And you can bring your own personality, your own whatever that is for you into the role. You don't have to be this typical type of person, because sometimes I think in Toastmasters it can come across like that. You have got well-established, maybe corporate people that have done all these things in their life. You might think, well, I'm not that person. You don't need to be. So it's kind of like modernizing Toastmasters in a way, So I would just wholeheartedly have a go at it. And there's so many, the community's so supportive. You just all you need is that inspiration, that motivation. That's all you need. And the rest will fall into place.
You had a theme for your year in leadership. What was it?
Oh, authenticity. Yes. My president word of the year was authenticity, working from your own authentic nature, because that is where your brilliance lies. Honestly, that's where the good ideas come. That's where you become a super attractor, as it were. That's where abundance lies within you, within your authentic self. And try not to pretend to be anyone else but yourself. Obviously, learn from other people's wisdom. It's important to learn and grow from other people, but it's really important for that to work in your own authentic spirit. And that's something that I really try to keep strong within my presidency, and not to get lost into other ideas of what I think I should be, and still be to my own authentic core. And that's what I think people like about me. Hopefully it's just me being strange and bouncy and smiley, but that's just how I am. But it sort of works for me.
No, and I think it's a good advice. When I came to the UK as manager, I've never been before, and I read a lot of books and a lot of things, and in the end you're like, just gonna be me, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I think authenticity is a very good advice.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Mm. And I think speaking as somebody who was on your committee, I think you did a really good job, and all the goals were achieved, and I think we all had a good time. So, well done, Madam President. Very well done.
Thank you.
If people want to find you online, I know you have your yoga and other businesses. Where can they find you?
So my Instagram, I've named myself now Intuitive Abbey for the time being. So if you put Abbey Brinklow into Facebook, ABBEY, and then BRINKLOW, you'll find me on Facebook, and I've got a page on there too, and you can connect me with it. And also on LinkedIn, I think it's still active, so you can connect via there as well.
Very well. Once again, thank you, Abbey, for coming and talking to us about your year in leadership. I think you had some really good advice. So once again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Pierre. It's been a pleasure.
And that wraps up our podcast for this week. My name is Pierre and I'm your host. Welcome to the Heart Speaker podcast. For all details, go to heartspeaker.org.uk. And until next time, bye bye.